Next up, I want to invite Nick and Susan up. We're going to talk a little bit about customer journeys and how to kickstart CX. Nick heads up our CX division here in the UK and Europe, and Susan heads up CX at Sciensus. Fun fact about Susan, she is bilingual, and so she was very gracious to come down to our Paris XDay event 2 months ago and gave this same presentation. So this will be the second time I get to see it, but the first time that I actually get to understand it. So looking forward to it.
Okay.
That one should be working as well.
Thank you.
Cool, and I am not bilingual, but I managed to do this presentation in French with Susan. I studied French. I lived in Paris 22 many years ago and have worked in companies in France since. And I was like, yeah, we can do it in French. And she was like, well, I can definitely do it in French. I was like, oh, shit. So I did a lot of practice and a lot of reading through stuff for that presentation. And I felt tonight it's going to be way easier, right? Because it's in English. So
exactly, yeah.
Fingers
All
crossed. So yeah, I'm delighted to be here tonight talking about one of my favorite tools in the CX world, which is customer journey mapping, or really customer journey management. I think, it's something that I've relied on in my CX career all the time to give a framework, to give context, to give what seems to be a bit of a theme this evening, the ability to tell really good stories about what your customers are experiencing when they interact with your brand. And I'm delighted to be joined by Susan again on stage at the XDay. We met last year after one of her team came to the London XDay and signed them up as a customer for customer journey mapping. So we'll get into a little bit of Susan's experience with QuestionPro, why she wanted to do journey mapping and that sort of stuff. And I think it's a great story, but I just wanted to start with a few thoughts on journey management itself. That's us, sorry. That's us, obviously. So journey management for me is important because often in the CX world, right, CX efforts fail because people aren't solving the right problems. How many times do CX teams get asked to, hey, just run me a workshop, or hey, just implement AI for me, or do this, do that? And there's some things on there that are actually really important, like increase revenue, reduce churn, things like that, right? But so often in CX, it's just so all-encompassing that people get stuck into the wrong things and they don't have a way of really framing the problem. So journey mapping for me helps solve that because it gives you a business-centric view through the lens of what it means to be a customer. And really, it does three things, right? It helps you organize your thinking around people, process, and systems. It helps you check that the tech that you've purchased to do things really to help your customers is actually doing what you want it to do. How many times do we see, companies plow loads of money into new CRMs or stuff like that, and then they're only getting half of the promised use cases from the vendor at the beginning? And there is a framework there to check that it's really doing what you need it to do, and then it helps you prioritize for the biggest benefit. So if I just go into those in a bit more detail, the ability to organize around people, process, and systems. Customer journey maps are not just about the customer. I will always lay out a map with customer needs, customer steps, touch points, are really customer-focused stuff, but we'll do a section on who are our teams in our business involved? What are the processes that underlie that? What are the systems we are using? And getting people together in a room is so helpful for breaking down organizational silos, helping you get colleagues to think, as I like to say, a bit more, and I've got bad shoulders, so I probably can't do it, T-shaped. So you're doing this bit, but what's happening there, what's happening there? Get people talking about where they fit into what you are doing for your customers. Create a common language, uncover processes and tools that like other bits of the business might not even know. And then just when it's all laid out, brings real context to your storytelling. Check your tech point. I kind of covered it, right? I just think you buy a piece of tech, it doesn't necessarily bring you the value. It's how you use it. When you start looking at, oh, that tech was supposed to do that for us to meet that customer need in that customer journey stage, you get a bunch of people in the room and go, is it really doing that? Sometimes you discover some stuff that you really need to think about whether you change it or not. So you're understanding how those tools are being used. You're understanding if they work for the customer. You're creating reasons in your organization to make changes that you can tell stories about. You can inspire action. Final piece is that prioritization piece. Customer journey management as opposed to just mapping. You're getting feedback and metrics piped into a journey in real time, giving you the context of where pain points are happening, where you really need to focus. You can overlay different customer types by building personas. You can look at, maybe a high-value customer with this issue is more important than fixing this one for a low-value customer. You start targeting insight to illustrate the problem. Storytelling, inspiring action rather than just delivering, hey, our CSAT, what does satisfaction even mean to customers, is 60. This is what's happening. This is where it's happening. This is what it means. So each journey stage as well helps you build that business case because you can easily say, this is a growth problem. This is a retention problem. This is an efficiency problem. So just a few ideas of mine about why journey management is so important. And I just sort of stop and consider the QuestionPro journey management platform, which I really think is something that can set CX teams up for business success. Why? Because it's really intuitive. It's easy to build, easy to share, comprehensive maps. You can link to so much data to bring that context. You can track feedback sentiment in real time, and you can build in action tracking to make sure that you have completed the things that you found you needed to do to improve the experience. So, journey management, great tool in the CX space. I know there's a lot of research folk in the room as well, and it's interesting because for me, that's just customers at another part of their journey. So how can some of that stuff flow into the awareness, the discovery? What are they thinking? So good stuff for everybody to consider. And I wanted to now have a little bit of a conversation with Susan about how she took Sciensus's customer experience team and wider business into journey mapping and why. So Susan, thanks again. And I guess, could you just tell us a little bit about Sciensus and your role to kick us off?
Yep, no problem. So first of all, thank you very much. It's great to be here. It's great to see you all in the crowd. Good. So Sciensus, we are a life sciences company and we work in Europe, but in the UK, we provide clinical home care medicine services. Now, that means that we provide specialist hospital medicines to people in their own homes. And if they need clinical care, nursing care, to teach them how to use that medicine or to infuse that medicine or give that medicine, we do that in their home. Our biggest customer is the NHS. It's not our only customer, but it's our biggest customer. We have 230,000 patients that we look after. We do 5,000 deliveries every day. We take in 2,000 phone calls every day. We look after, we provide services for 200 hospitals and 30 to 40 pharmaceutical manufacturers as well. So my background is I'm a pharmacist. I did 21 years in the NHS, continuous, and then 2 years ago I moved into Sciensus. So poacher turned gamekeeper, I'm not quite sure, or gamekeeper turned poacher, don't know, but that's a little bit about Sciensus and me.
Cool, and you alluded there that pharmacist background, 23 years in the NHS. So you were pretty new to customer experience when you stepped into Sciensus as Customer Experience Director. What made you think that customer journey mapping was maybe something you wanted to do?
So I didn't even know customer experience was a thing until I joined Sciensus and was appointed as their Director of Customer Experience, although I think you probably cut me in half and I've got the patient running through me, so always really focused on the patient journey, not realising that I was maybe a patient experience expert. Anyway, so joined Sciensus and soon realised that the people in Sciensus really care about the patient. However, our processes don't always reflect how much everybody cares. So learned about journey mapping, and I thought this would be a really good skill to bring into the business to try and change that thinking of people, if people put themselves in the shoes of the customer, and I focused on the patient to begin with, although we have done the pharma and the NHS journey as well, but focus on the patient, put yourself in the shoes of the patient and really live a journey from their side rather from looking at our processes, because we were very process focused before and now we're becoming much more patient experience focused.
Cool. And I mean, I was struck when we started talking. You talk customer experience, patient experience is like a level more, right? You get this wrong, and there's serious repercussions for people. And that came out in one of the workshops that we did when we were talking about, like, what if a delivery failed? And Susan painted a picture of it was fairly bleak in terms of the customer profile we were looking at. It could be really serious. And I think that really hits home and makes it a really emotive and interesting topic to do this type of work on as well. But I think, let's touch on those workshops, Susan. I think we ran 3 in the end over 2 days. You had some great input. We obviously knocked ideas around, but what made them a success for you, and what did you like about the approach we took?
So we had to sell it. I had to sell it to my fellow senior leadership team. I had to sell the idea to our executive leadership team too. So what we did is we got Nick to do a video.
Because I love talking.
So he did a video, and that went out with a bit of an explanation about what we were trying to achieve and get some buy-in. And I have to say, our senior team and our exec team absolutely bought into it. We had the workshop planned focus on the patient to begin with, and I asked for each of the teams to send one subject matter expert into that workshop, which actually means a senior person is coming out of their day job for a day. And bearing in mind, we're an operational business. We have patients at the end of it. We cannot afford to get anything wrong. We were completely oversubscribed. I had a waiting list of people wanting to join the workshop. And this was even before we started. So, cut a long story short, in total we've had about 55 people to come through to run that. But the first workshop was really, really insightful. People were very enthusiastic. It was a whole day, and that can be quite hard, getting people into a room for a whole day and working together. But the energy in the room was amazing. It was very interactive, and we all learned loads about the processes.
I got to dust down my Post-it notes and my Sharpie pens and get the sort of boards out, and I really enjoyed the day. But I think what struck me as well was what Susan said about the energy in the room, the desire to do the right thing for the patients, the desire to learn more about where individuals' roles fitted into what the wider organisation was trying to do for patients was really interesting. We sort of followed a format of what's the core customer need at this journey stage, what would that customer be thinking, feeling, doing whilst that is happening, then what are your processes, teams involved, systems involved, what metric might you do to measure success of this or not, and just had great conversations through the day. And we wrote them up, we put them in our tool, we shared that back with Susan and stuff, and we were able to capture actions. And I think, what the output for you, what was the sort of success?
So great success. So obviously, we've got our executive team, my fellow senior leadership team. They wanted an output, and completely, if they're going to send their senior teams or senior people into workshop for a day, there has to be an output. So at the end of the day, we ended up with 40 ideas for projects, of which we broke into groups, and then we followed up with working groups of breaking those people into again, subject matter experts who could deal with a particular problem. So we had an action list of 40 actions. We took forward probably about, 15 or so of those projects and ran them through to the end, and made some really good progress, and had a really big impact on the business. So not only the actions were great, but also the people who'd come to the workshop didn't necessarily know each other. We're a company of 1,700 people. We've got people who are field-based, people who are based in the office in Paddington. We have operations in Burton and again in Featherstone. So we had various people coming into the Burton office to run that, to be at that workshop. They didn't know each other. They hadn't thought about their processes. They didn't know that if they made a change in their particular team, that could have an effect downstream and upstream. And actually the day brought those people together, improved our communication. A lot of our actions were around the communication, improving communication, doing things earlier, telling people earlier what's happening, what's coming down the line from a sort of contract and service point of view. So breaking down those silos was really important, and that really worked.
Yeah, and I loved, I think it was your legal lady that hadn't realised that one delay on her part sort of slowed down a whole process with the NHS that might have got that, and she redid her process in like 2 days to make sure that those hold-ups weren't there. And I just thought it was really powerful in terms of some of that stuff I said at the beginning, that, so often we bring customer insight into a room, but do we really get people talking about what does this mean to them? What can they change? What are the actions they're going to take? And those conversations were the gold. And to hear formally that 40 actions were suggested, cool. But the fact that you did 15 of them and it's made a real difference, even better. And I know you're doing some more stuff. We were just looking at your patient communication journey this afternoon. What was it, 28 reminders?
So patients, when they're having a delivery, if they're going to have another delivery because they're on a continuous treatment, they're on like an 8 to 9 week cycle, and we send them up to 28 reminders to book their next delivery. Anyway, so I know. And it's difficult to ask people to reduce the number of reminders, and that's just the reminders. We send patients other communications as well along their journey because we need to, etc. So that isn't the only message they get. But so anyway, we brought that into the business, and we said, right, we need to map now the whole patient journey and all the comms that they could possibly get along a particular journey. So that's what Nick was looking at this afternoon when I showed how complicated it is. But actually that's been really good, and that's been an ask from inside the business going, right, well, Susan has this journey mapping tool, let's map it on that, let's give people access, then let's sit around the table and let's discuss what we can do to make this better for patients. So using that overarching tool, that we've then actually mapped other pain points and other bits of people's journey along the way and linked them in. So the tool's been absolutely key to doing that piece of work. It's been brilliant.
Cool, which is great to hear. Thank you. And I think, just to sort of round it off, you started with customer journey mapping with us, and you've recently signed up for the wider CX platform. I know that initially was a real focus on your NHS prescribed patient satisfaction survey, but can you just give us a little bit more of, where that thinking came from, why you wanted to go down that route, and what else you think that can bring to your CX efforts?
Yeah, definitely. Before I do, though, I will say I'm in that older generation who finds logging into different systems really stressful, remembering passwords, how do I use it? Now, I can use the QuestionPro journey mapping tool. So if I can use it and find it really useful and as a great visual, anybody can. And Anyway, there we go. So, and then moving on, so we have this survey that we have to do with our patients every year. Last year and previously, we've been using a third-party company to do that survey and getting a report. The problem is often is the delay between the survey closing and the actually getting the report. We're almost into the next survey cycle before we've actually actioned anything, any of the insight that comes out. I thought, goodness, this is not very useful if we're not getting a really agile view and getting that one static report. So having had a look at the QuestionPro survey tool, thinking actually if our data goes into the survey tool, then we'll be able to interrogate that and segment the data as we go through the year and get further and further insights from that. So I'm really looking forward to that. So apparently my data's been uploaded and I'm very excited because very soon I'm going to get my dashboard.
Your data is uploaded, your dashboard is built, all the filters are there. You can look at patient experience down to hospital and drug type level. And I think, having seen last year's report, which we will create for you as well, your own ability to just drill in and look at okay, so the overall experience is great. I think your patient satisfaction was 90.7% or something like that. But where is the gaps? What is the drug types? What are the... So it's going to be game-changing for you because there were things that come out in the report, but they came out, as you said, 6 months later. So really happy to bring that level of granularity. I hope we can sort of get more touch point things into the journeys to get that richer storytelling, richer contextual stuff. But I think, I've loved working with you. It's been a huge pleasure to see how our tools have helped you shape your CX thinking and help you improve your patient experience. I look forward to a long and fruitful partnership, and you're a massive friend of QuestionPro with all you do for us as well, so thank you.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I ditto. There you go.
And I can safely say that is much easier in English than it is in French. But merci à tous, bonne soirée. Je revois l'année prochaine.